Everybody, I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience being cucked, particularly something that happened between me and my ex-wife. Now, before I begin, there are two things that you need to know about my ex-wife. Okay, number one, she loved getting jiggy with it, right? She loved it. She was like an animal. And she died. So that was kind of like a chicken and the egg scenario, divorce, death, which came first. But point is, whichever way you slice it, she's out of my life. I never knew if your partner dies, does that automatically mean they're your ex? But anyway, this is not normally a story that I probably would feel comfortable telling because it's very personal, right? But the reason that I wanted to tell it was because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've sort of been blowing up lately, And so I feel like now I have a little bit more of a platform, and that allows me to sort of provide people a perspective on things that they wouldn't normally see. For example, cucking is kind of a joke, right? It's sort of considered a punchline in our culture. And for me, it's the exact opposite, because I have always struggled with insecurity, dysfunction in the bedroom and everywhere else. I mean, if you've watched this YouTube channel for more than 5 seconds, you probably could tell that I'm very mentally ill, right? So cucking for me is sort of more of a therapeutic exercise, right? It's sort of an emotional, ritualistic sort of thing. And basically, like I said, I had a very, very difficult time my entire life sort of making it happen in the terms of intimacy. And so what really wasn't until my ex-wife and I got together and then really got to know each other and got comfortable with each other that I was able to have anything remotely resembling physical intimacy. And so even when it was good, even when it was even the best night that we had, it would be over and I would think, I would obsess over, were you faking it? Would you rather be with somebody else? Do you wish it was your ex? All this stuff. And I would grill her basically every night about all these things. Then that started to spill over into my daily life. That would become, are you cheating on me? Why aren't you texting me back? Why aren't you calling me? Do you even love me? All this stuff. And it got very, 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 very difficult for both of us. And that really started to sort of fray our relationship, and it started to, I remember very vividly one night, I had a dream. That's not like Martin Luther King, not that kind of dream. I hope he didn't have a dream like this, because otherwise he would be pretty freaky. I don't know, he's kind of hot, maybe it's, anyway, I had a dream. Now I can't stop thinking about Martin Luther King. I had a nightmare. Let's say that. I have a nightmare. Evil Dr. King, right? I had a nightmare where my wife was engaging in an act of physical intimacy in front of me, and I couldn't do anything about it, and she was doing it to humiliate me. She was tormenting me with it, right? And it started to become a recurring nightmare. And eventually I brought this up to her and I said, I've been having this dream where you, at the time I didn't know exactly that that's what it was called, cucking. But I told her, I have been having this nightmare where you physically, or you torment me, psychologically and physically, in this way. I don't want to say it because I don't want to get YouTube to get all pissy with me, but yeah, basically, yeah, I told her and she said, I thought she would think it was funny, but she really did not. And she said, you know what? I am getting sick of you having this idea of me in your head, this figment of your imagination who is evil, right? You have invented a version of me that is evil and is trying to ruin your life. And you think that's me, right? You projected that onto me. So that's what's causing all the problems in our relationship. And at the time, I was sort of like, okay, lesson learned. Don't tell you anything ever again, right? Zip. But, after I started to think about it, and I started to realize she was exactly right. I was right on the money. And I sort of sat with this for a little bit, and I started to I worked with my therapist, trying to figure out how to sort of get the evil version of her out of my head. But it was just, it's very, very deep-seated problems that I have. So basically, one night we had an argument. And it was about something so dumb, I don't even remember what it was, but basically the you know how it's like every argument isn't really about the thing that it's about. It's about it's like most couples have the same argument over and over again their entire relationship, right? Same thing. And that's definitely the case with us. And it got to a point where she said, what do? We cannot continue going on like this. So we have to either do something or end it. And I, as a joke, said, well, why don't we have a threesome, And I was expecting her to laugh. I was trying to break the tension with that. But her reaction was like, really? And I could tell that she was actually interested. And I said, well, I was joking, but, I was at a place where I feel like I'm such a pathetic loser in relationships. I was at a place where I was ready to do anything. You're going to probably hear the rest of the story and you're going to say, you're so stupid. But you have to understand, I was in a place where I would do anything to just have her love me again, right? I would do anything to have her to just fix it. And I didn't know at the time, nothing will do that. It's not possible. But so when I said the threesome remark and she said she was interested, I said, I was just joking. But if you are interested, then I'll think about it. And she said, you know what? Yeah. And the reason why she said that was because this is probably important context I should have mentioned earlier. She was polyamorous before we got married. So she sort of lived her whole life slinging it all around town, and everybody was just supposed to be fine with that, And I made that an ultimatum. I said, I cannot do that. So either it's probably not going to work between the two of us. But we fell so in love that she was willing to give that up for me. And talking about it now, I don't think I ever really appreciated that the way that I should have. And that's my bad. I did a lot of things wrong up until this point, right? Well, and still. Anyway, she said, okay, let's do a threesome. So I was like, okay, sort of hesitantly, but I figured I could let her have this because she gave in to me to get married, and so I can give in to her a little bit. Compromise, right? So I sat with it for a few more days, and then I came to her. I had sort of, I do a lot of surfing on the internet. And so it's almost impossible to not find something about cucking in some way or shape or form, And I had sort of stumbled into a Reddit community centered around it, and it was very cool. There were very like-minded people, and we all sort of shared similar desires and similar problems. And so I had sort of been as I was thinking about the threesome, I was like, well, I don't really feel like that would be good because I can barely make one person happy in the sack, let alone two, So I said to her, what if instead of a threesome, you get with somebody else and you do it in front of me and I watch, right? And at first she laughed. This wasn't a joke. She thought this one was a joke. And she said, you want me to cuck you? And I said, well, yeah, I don't know. It's I know it's considered a joke, but I said, yeah, I feel like maybe there's a concept in therapy called exposure therapy. Okay. And that is basically when if you have a fear or a phobia, you expose yourself to the fear or phobia so that you see it's not a big deal and you get over it. So if you're afraid of bees, kick a bee's nest. If you're a germaphobe, stick a sandwich in a toilet and eat it, or lick your own. I don't know. Point is, you expose yourself to the phobia, and then you see that it's not a big deal. So I said, my worst nightmare, literally my worst nightmare, is that I'm getting cucked. So what if it just happens, and then I'm like, okay, the worst thing that could ever happen happened. Now we can move on. Now I can stop living in fear of this thing happening constantly, and we can actually have a good marriage. It was a good idea. Even now that I'm saying it again, it seems like a good idea. But, okay, so I presented this to her with all my reasoning, and she said, okay, and she was really interested. A little too interested. That was probably the first red flag, but at the time I didn't really. So the next question became, should we pick somebody who we both know or a stranger? And at first I thought it would be better with somebody that we knew, because then we can sort of talk about it and process things and all have we could even maybe go to throuples therapy, Look at me now, I'm becoming poly, and I got tricked into it. Anyway, then, we sort of started to realize, well, if it's, we were going down the list of people who were contenders from our social circles, and I was realizing I can't start going to trivia night and picturing you railing my wife every single time I'm trying to figure out, who the 12th president was. So we said, maybe it would be better to have a stranger. But then that became a daunting task in and of itself, because we were sort of like, well, do we go on Craigslist? Like what, and then eventually I sort of said, look, the whole point of this is that it is supposed to be humiliating for me, and it is supposed to be, so I'm going to give you the reins. You do whatever you want. You do it with whoever you want. And I just have to suck it up. That's the whole point. It's not just in the moment, it's the lead up and everything surrounding it. It's a psychological thing. So she said, okay, and I said, I promise it is okay. Never say that. So we picked out a date. Well, she picked out a date and said, you're going to do this. And that was what I wanted, So she said, we're going to do this here. It's going to be at the house. Another mistake. It's going to be with this person who I found on Hinge. And there we go. It's going to be great. So that night comes, and I'm very, 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 very nervous. I'm sort of, that's anxiety inducing, but another mistake that I made was that I sort of had an attitude of just power through it, because it's like mouthwash. The pain means that it's working. This is supposed to hurt. So the pain is good. Suck it up and get through it. So I probably would have stopped sooner had I had all the information that I have now in the future, but I didn't. So the time rolls around. I can't focus at work because I'm thinking about it. And then the night rolls around. It was a Friday night, and there's a knock at the door. He's here, right? She had told me she'd never met this guy before. And she was acting like she had never met this guy before. But as soon as she opened the door, I could swear there was a little bit of it was like a flicker of recognition. It was like they said, oh, nice to meet you. Hi, how are you? My name's so-and-so. But the look in her eye seemed like she knew who this person was. But I can't say anything because I'm going to sound like a crazy person. But that was sort of a stomach drop moment, but I said, no, it's all in your head, because I'm paranoid about everything else. How do I know what's right and what's not? That's my torment in life. So I said, okay, whatever. He comes in, and they're sort of like, well, should we make small talk, or do you want to get into it? We had put out a little charcuterie board. My wife likes doing that kind of stuff. Probably should have been another red flag how into it she was getting. It was like it was going to be a date. She had lit candles and, cheese and all this stuff and wine. So he starts having crackers and talking about all, just the weather and all this stuff. And then eventually they say, okay, it's time. like they started acting like they had been talking about this before. And maybe that wasn't exactly something that I had said. No, that's for no. But still, it was weird that it seemed like they were the team and I wasn't. I guess I'm complaining about exactly what I wanted, and I told her that. But I don't know, it's just all these things I was starting to really, 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 really get agitated and anxious. And I should have stopped it. I should have said, no, I don't want to do this anymore. But I didn't, because I thought that was supposed to be good. I thought that was the way it was supposed to go. So they say, okay, we are going to start. Let's go in the bedroom. So I walked in, and I felt like I was about to puke. I sit in a chair that we had positioned there, the cuck chair, right? I sit down, and knowing probably what I should have done was face the dude and see the back of my wife's head, because what sunk me was I sat behind the guy and I saw my wife's face straight on. So I was looking at her face, processing every single micro expression that she was emitting. She walked over to the guy and she was so excited. The look on her face of excitement when she was coming up to him and leaning in, and she was like, I can't do it, but it was a look that I had never seen before in my life. She was excited in a way that I had never seen before in my life. She was conveying an emotion that I've never seen before. And that broke me. That was what pushed me over the edge, because I knew there's no coming back from this. There's no coming back from knowing. This is a person who I thought that I have learned inside and out, right? And now I'm seeing that is not the case. She has been hiding this part of herself from me. Not hiding it, but it's just I've never seen it before. So that probably means there's a lot else that I haven't seen. Maybe it's my fault. We can argue that until the cows come home. But point is, I was realizing the true depth of how over our relationship was. And it was sort of like I had an out-of-body experience. Because all of a sudden I got up and I said, stop. And she got upset and she was like, what's the problem? It's annoyed. She was annoyed with me for stopping. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. She said, well, you said it was okay. And I said, I know I said that now, but now I'm taking it back. And I was getting more and more and more and more upset. At that point, I was 75% sure that we were getting a divorce. But she could have saved it. When she was annoyed with me for stopping, it went up to 90. And then I said, you know what? Goodbye. It's over. You two do whatever the hell you want in here, because you don't have to worry about me anymore. And I walked out. And I slammed the door behind me, and I walked down, and I got in my car. And I sat in the car. Nobody came out after me. I waited for 5 minutes in that car like a loser, like a pathetic asshole. 5 minutes. I sat there waiting for somebody to come out, and nobody did. That's when I became 100%. She didn't come out. I said, it's over. Nothing. So I drove away and I went to a friend's house. And I stayed the night. And I got up the next morning. It was one of those, that night of sleep was so awful, because I don't know if something ever happens where you wake up in the middle of the night and at first you forget, and you're like, maybe it was a dream, maybe it's not. And then you remember. And so I would wake up 10 o'clock, midnight, 3 o'clock. And I'd remember every single time, because I'd have to pee a lot. So I have to get up and pee a lot during the night. And so I'm a light sleeper. So I was getting up and remembering what had happened. I've been like, every moment, every time that I remembered, it was like it was happening all over again. And I would check my phone to see if she had texted and said, I'm sorry, you know, I made a mistake. I love you so much. Let's fix this. But nothing. Every time I checked, nothing. I wake up the next morning and I go to work. I stop at home first because I need to shower and change, and nobody's there. I text her and I say, hey, where are you? Are you okay? You know? Nothing, no answer. So I go to work. And I don't even remember anything that happened that day. I was just typing mindlessly, trying to take my mind off of it. But I just couldn't focus on anything. I was like, this whole day is shot. And I keep checking my phone. I've got it turned all the way up. You know, when you turn it all the way up so that you hear the sound? Nothing. For the whole morning. Eventually, 11 a.m. rolls around. I get a call from an unknown number. And I think it's a sales call. I get a lot of sales calls, so I don't answer it. Same number calls back immediately after. No, decline. Same number calls me back a third time. And I answer. And guy says, you know, this is so-and-so from the LAPD. Is this Dan Henschel? I said, yeah, it is. He says, is your wife so-and-so? And I said she was. Not anymore. What's going on? She was in a car accident this morning. She's dead. And the whole world stopped around me. And I said, huh? He said, she's dead. In retrospect, I probably should have asked what happened. But I didn't. I don't know why. I said, okay. And I hung up the phone. I think because it was one of those things where you don't really know how you're going to react in something like that. So I was just in shock. And I was trying to treat it like a normal phone call. So I said, okay, thanks. I said, thanks. Hang up. And it was like the whole, you know, everything sort of went around me. My ears are ringing. It's like everything's gone. And I feel like Geppetto. I'm having an out-of-body experience. I go over to my boss's room and I say, I'm sorry. I think I said, I'm sorry, I gotta go. And the look on my boss's face could, you know, she could tell. My boss is a female, by the way. So, you know, write that down. She said, I can tell that you are, I could tell, well, all right, she didn't say that, but she basically was like, she looked just as shocked as me, I think because I was conveying extreme shock. And she said, okay, you can, you know, do what you got to do. I hope everything's okay. And I said, it's not. At this point, I realize I am crying and snot is running down my nose. And I realize I have to call the police guy back because I don't have any other information. I don't know where she is. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on, etc., etc. I call the police guy back. And I ask, what the hell happened? What's going on with my wife? How did she die? What's going on? And he says she was in the car with the guy from the previous night, this morning. And they were merging onto the interstate, and I guess they misjudged the timing of the semi-truck that was also merging. They flipped over off the overpass. Both dead. And I realized that now, for the rest of my life, the last time that I ever saw my wife was that face she made that I've never seen her make, of excitement that I've never seen, because she's about to get dicked down by some random man. I lied and I told my family that what we had gone out to eat the previous night and we had a beautiful evening and said we loved each other. But even then, eventually I couldn't keep up that lie because I had decided to end it 12 hours before she died. So her parents are trying to coordinate funeral crap with me. And eventually I just said, listen, we got a divorce the night before. We said it's over. So I don't want to be involved in this, okay? This is your problem. You deal with it. Leave me out of it. I don't want to be involved. And they assumed that I was grieving. And so they said, no, it's, come on, it's okay. We love you. You're a part of this family. And I said, no, I'm not a part of this family. I'm nothing. She cucked me. And they said, what does that mean? And I said, just don't worry about it, okay? That was me hanging up the phone. That's it. She's dead. That's how she died. I thought telling that story would make me feel better, but it didn't. Nothing will make me feel better. Because every time I think about her now, I think about that face. Every time.